You were almost asleep when your whole body lurched, as if you were falling. There's a name for that startled drop. A hypnagogia. And it's one of the most common, harmless reflexes we have, though its science isn't fully settled. Here's the gentle irony. That little jolt tends to arrive not when you fail to relax, but precisely because your body was letting go so completely. Welcome to Sleepy Science. Tonight, we follow that small twitch back toward its source. The quiet handoff between being awake and being asleep, where the body sometimes flickers once before it finally settles. For now, feel how you are already loosening. The shoulders sinking, the hands unclenching, the small muscles of the face growing heavy as the weight of the day drains slowly out of them. So let's start where the falling feeling itself begins, at the very edge of sleep. In the moment, your body first begins to power down. Somewhere in the soft space between waking and sleep, the body does something quietly strange. You are drifting, growing heavier, the day loosening its hold on you. And then, without warning, a single muscle tightens and lets go. A leg kicks. An arm flinches. Sometimes it arrives wrapped in the sensation of falling, of missing a step on a staircase that was never really there. Underneath everything we explore in these slow hours sits one gentle question. Why does the body suddenly jerk, with that odd feeling of falling? Exactly as you begin to release the waking world, we will not hurry toward the answer. For now, simply notice that it happens, to you and to nearly everyone. If this has happened to you, you are in enormous company. Population surveys suggest that around 60 to 70% of people report this sudden twitch as they fall asleep, at least occasionally. Some feel it most nights, others only when overtired or sleeping somewhere unfamiliar. It crosses every age, every culture, every kind of body. Children feel it. Older adults feel it. It is one of the most widely shared experiences in all of human sleep, and yet it is rarely spoken about, because it happens in a private moment no one else can see. So let this be the first reassurance of the night. Whatever this sensation is, it is common and it is harmless. This experience has a name, and knowing it can make it feel smaller and softer. Scientists call it a hypnic jerk. You may also hear it called a sleep start or a hypnagogic jerk, 3 names for the same brief event. The word hypnic comes from the Greek hypnos, meaning sleep, the same root that gives us hypnosis and hypnotic. Hypnagogic describes the drowsy in-between state you pass through on the way down into sleep. So the name itself is simply a description of when it happens. A small start, a gentle jolt, arriving at the very threshold of sleep. There is nothing sinister hidden inside the term, only a quiet label for a familiar moment. A hypnic jerk belongs to a larger family of movements that doctors call myoclonus. Myoclonus is the medical word for a brief, involuntary muscle twitch, a sudden contraction that happens on its own, without any decision from you. Not all myoclonus signals a problem. In fact, some forms are entirely normal and expected in healthy bodies. Hiccups, for instance, are a kind of myoclonus of the diaphragm. The little twitch you sometimes feel when your eyes are closed is another. The hypnic jerk is what specialists call physiological myoclonus, meaning it is a natural feature of how a healthy nervous system works, not a sign that anything has gone wrong inside you. What does a hypnic jerk actually feel like from the inside? Most often, it is a single, quick contraction, one clean jolt rather than a series. It may travel through the legs, the arms, or occasionally the whole body at once. It is as if something briefly pulled every string taut, then let them all fall slack again. The movement is fast, lasting a fraction of a second, and then it is over. Many people describe it as a jump or a kick. Others feel only a subtle inner lurch, without much visible motion at all. The intensity varies widely from person to person, and even from night to night in the same person, depending on how the body arrives at sleep. Sometimes the jerk brings company. A person might gasp, or feel their heart quicken for a moment, or notice a small flush of alertness that briefly interrupts the drift towards sleep. This can feel startling in the moment, especially if it pulls you back from the edge of a dream. But these companions are simply the body's ordinary reflexes catching up with the sudden movement. The quickened heartbeat settles within seconds. The gasp is just a breath. None of it means danger is near. It is the nervous system momentarily noticing the twitch, and then, just as quickly, letting the moment pass. Within a breath or two, the body usually softens again and continues its descent. Often, the strangest part is not the movement itself, but what accompanies it in the mind. Many people report a vivid sensory flash at the exact instant of the jerk, a fleeting image of stepping off a curb, missing a stair, or tumbling gently through open space. The falling sensation can feel astonishingly real, even though the body is perfectly still and safe in bed. This tiny burst of imagery arrives in the drowsy borderland. There, the mind is already beginning to dream, but it has not fully let go of waking. The image and the twitch feel deeply connected, as if one caused the other. Which came first is a question we will return to, gently, later tonight. To understand the hypnic jerk, it helps to picture where in the night it lives. It does not happen in deep sleep, or in the middle of a dream hours later. It belongs to sleep onset, the very first moments of falling asleep, the doorway rather than the room beyond. This is the drowsy transition, the soft handover when wakefulness has not quite ended and sleep has not quite begun. It is a narrow window, often lasting only minutes, when the brain is neither fully awake nor fully asleep, but somewhere tender in between. Almost every hypnic jerk arrives in this threshold, which is one of the clearest clues we have about what it might be. Sleep scientists have a name for this doorway, too. They call it stage N1, the lightest stage of sleep, the first step down from waking. In N1, the brain's electrical rhythms begin to slow. The fast, busy patterns of an alert mind give way to gentler, more rolling waves. Muscles start to loosen. Attention drifts and loosens its grip on the outside world. Yet this stage is famously light and easily interrupted. People woken from N1 often insist they were never asleep at all. It is a fragile, in-between state. And it is precisely here, in this earliest and lightest layer of sleep, that the hypnic jerk tends to appear. This drowsy borderland has an older, more poetic name as well: Hypnagogia. It describes the shifting, dreamlike landscape of the mind as it slips from waking towards sleep. In Hypnagogia, thoughts begin to loosen from logic. You might notice drifting images, half-formed scenes, snatches of imagined sound, or a sense of gentle motion. These are called hypnagogic experiences, and most of them are completely ordinary. The falling image that sometimes accompanies a hypnic jerk is one of them. Understood this way, the jerk is not an intruder crashing into your sleep. It is a resident of this territory, one of several strange and harmless things the mind does as it crosses the bridge into rest. Because hypnic jerks live at sleep onset, they tend to appear more often when that onset is rushed or strained. Many people notice them most on nights of exhaustion, when the body is so tired it plunges towards sleep faster than usual. They can also arrive more readily after a day heavy with caffeine, after intense evening exercise, or during periods of stress, when the mind is still humming as the body tries to power down. Sleeping in an unfamiliar place can invite them. 2. None of this is cause for concern. It simply suggests that the smoother and calmer your approach to sleep, the gentler this threshold tends to be. A quiet reason to let the evening slow down. It is worth pausing to separate the hypnic jerk from things it is sometimes confused with. It is not the same as restless legs, that creeping urge to move the legs that builds while you are still awake and resting. It is not periodic limb movements, the slower, repeating motions that can occur later in the night. And it is not a seizure, though the word myoclonus can sound alarming. A hypnic jerk is a single, isolated event at the doorway of sleep, in an otherwise ordinary night. For the vast majority of people, it needs no treatment and no worry. It is simply one of the ordinary textures of falling asleep. There is comfort in knowing how briefly the hypnic jerk actually lasts. The whole event, the contraction, the possible falling image, the small quickening of the heart, unfolds and resolves within a second or two. Compared to the long, unhurried hours of a full night's sleep, it is barely a flicker, a single ripple across an otherwise calm surface. What makes it feel larger is only its timing. It lands in a moment of vulnerability, just as you are letting your guard down. But the moment itself is fleeting. The body does not linger in alarm. It rights itself almost at once and resumes its slow, patient journey down into the deeper stages of rest. For most people, hypnic jerks are so mild that they barely register. You may twitch and never fully wake, sliding onward into sleep without ever knowing it happened. A bed partner might notice the movement while you remain entirely unaware. This is the most common form. Quiet, harmless, and forgotten by morning. Only sometimes does the jerk grow strong enough, or arrive alongside a vivid enough falling image, to pull you back to the surface for a moment. Even then, the return is brief. Understanding this can loosen the grip of any worry. The great majority of these twitches pass beneath the threshold of your notice, doing no harm and leaving no trace. Across history, people have tried to explain this falling feeling in their own ways. Long before sleep laboratories existed, cultures told stories about the sensation of dropping as one fell asleep, some imagining the soul briefly loosening from the body, others describing it as a small stumble on the way into another world. These are not scientific accounts, and we hold them only as folklore, as gentle evidence of how old and how universal this experience is. For as long as humans have been falling asleep, they have felt this occasional lurch at the threshold, and they have reached for language to make sense of it. Tonight, we reach for the language of science instead. When researchers first studied hypnic jerks with modern instruments, they confirmed something telling. These are genuine physical events, not merely imagined. Recordings of muscle activity show a real, sudden burst of electrical signal to the muscles at the moment of the jerk. Recordings of the brain show the transition happening around the same time, the drowsy patterns of early sleep briefly interrupted. So the twitch is not a trick of memory or a story the mind invents afterward. It is a measurable ripple that moves through the body's control systems at the edge of sleep. Establishing that much was the first step. Explaining exactly why it happens has proven to be a far harder question. Here is something researchers noticed early. The hypnic jerk seems tied to the handover of control that happens as we fall asleep. While you are awake, your muscles carry a certain background tension, held steady by signals from the brain. As sleep approaches, those signals ease, and the muscles are meant to relax and grow still. The jerk appears right in the middle of this handover, in the delicate moment when the system that keeps muscles ready is stepping back, and the system that quiets them is stepping forward. Something about that exchange, that shifting of the guard, seems to leave room for an occasional stray burst of movement to slip through. The nervous system, in these moments, is doing something remarkably intricate. Falling asleep is not a single switch being flipped, but many systems easing down at slightly different speeds. Centers deep in the brainstem that govern muscle tone begin to lower their signals. Regions that hold attention begin to release the outside world. Because these systems do not all quiet in perfect unison, there are brief windows when their signals overlap or clash. Many scientists suspect the hypnic jerk emerges from exactly this kind of imperfect timing. A momentary mismatch as different parts of the brain hand off control at their own pace. It is less a malfunction than the natural friction of a complex system settling. It helps to remember that a healthy nervous system is not perfectly smooth machinery. It is alive, dynamic, and full of small fluctuations, even at rest. The excitability of the circuits that drive movement rises and falls moment to moment. As you drift towards sleep and these circuits grow less stable, a threshold can occasionally be crossed by chance, sending a brief command to the muscles when none was intended. Seen this way, the hypnic jerk is not a flaw in you. It is a byproduct of having a living, responsive control system that is in the middle of changing states. The occasional twitch is simply the visible edge of that quiet, ongoing adjustment. What makes the falling sensation so vivid is worth dwelling on gently. When the body relaxes deeply, the signals it sends upward about its own position and weight begin to fade. The steady sense of being grounded, of lying supported by the bed, softens as sleep approaches. In that quieter sensory landscape, a sudden muscle jerk arrives without its usual context, and the drowsy, half-dreaming mind tries to make sense of it. One idea is that the mind, reaching for an explanation, briefly interprets the movement as falling. It is a plausible and appealing account. But as we will see, it is one interpretation among several, and the true sequence of events is still being carefully worked out. And this is where the old, tidy story begins to open into something more honest. For a long time, it was tempting to say simply, the body relaxes. The brain misreads the relaxation as falling, and it jerks you awake to catch yourself. It is a satisfying explanation, and you will hear it repeated often. But the deeper scientists look, the more they find that the truth resists such a clean summary. The central question we opened, why the body jerks with that falling feeling, turns out to have several possible answers competing quietly beneath the surface. What once seemed settled is, in fact, still an open and living question in sleep science today. So it is worth stating plainly and calmly what is agreed and what is not. Researchers broadly agree on when hypnic jerks happen. At the wake-to-sleep transition, in that fragile doorway of light sleep. They agree on what they are. Brief, benign, physiological twitches. But on the precise why, the exact mechanism that fires the muscle and conjures the falling image, there is genuine, ongoing debate. Several hypotheses coexist, none yet proven to the exclusion of the others. This uncertainty is not a failure of science. It is simply the honest edge of current knowledge, the place where careful people say we are still learning. And there is something peaceful in letting a question stay open. In the hours ahead, we will meet the main contenders one by one, slowly and without strain. There is the idea that the brain misreads deep relaxation as a fall, the familiar story, still taken seriously. There is the idea rooted in the shifting excitability of motor circuits as they change state. There is the idea that instability in the brainstem's control of muscle tone opens the door. And there is a much older, more speculative story, reaching back to our distant ancestors, which we will treat clearly as speculation rather than fact. For now, it is enough to know that the question is richer than it first appears, and that the next stretch of the night begins there. Notice, for a moment, how the shape of the question has already changed. We began by asking, plainly, why the body jerks as we fall asleep, as though a single, tidy answer were waiting to be uncovered. But the closer we have looked, the more the question has softened and widened into something subtler. Not what is the one cause, but which of several quiet possibilities best fits what we can actually measure. That shift, from certainty to careful curiosity, is itself part of the story of hypnic jerks. It mirrors how science often works, beginning with a simple picture and gently learning to hold a more truthful, more open one instead. So we arrive at the close of this first stretch with the old understanding gathered around us like a warm, familiar blanket. We know the hypnic jerk is common, harmless, and shared by most of humankind. We know its name, its family, its feel, and the exact doorway of sleep where it lives. And we know, now, that its deepest cause is not yet fully settled, that beneath the tidy explanations lies a real and living mystery. Everything we have laid down here is solid ground. What comes next is the slow, unhurried work of walking out onto the less certain terrain, one gentle step at a time, in no hurry to arrive. You've been with us for a while now, and your breathing has likely softened without you noticing. A soft subscribe helps another sleepless mind find this sanctuary too. Now, let's pause together, one sleepy soul at a time. The little mismatch you heard about, different parts of the brain handing off control at their own unhurried pace, is already happening inside you, quietly, with no instruction needed from you. You do not have to smooth it or manage it. The question we opened is beginning to turn, softening from "why does this happen?" into something gentler, something you can rest beside rather than solve. Let your attention settle onto the weight of your body against the bed, the slow rise and fall of your breath. There is nothing here to catch, nothing to hold. Let one long breath ease out, and the quiet path ahead opens on its own, whenever you are ready. Falling asleep is not a single moment, but a handoff. One system quietly passing control to another. While you're awake, networks deep in your brainstem keep your muscles toned and your mind alert, holding you in the day. As sleep approaches, those wakefulness networks begin to dim, lowering their signal like a room settling into dusk. Nothing switches off all at once. Instead, the systems that keep you awake and the systems that invite sleep begin trading places, gently, in the background. The hypnic jerk lives right here, in this narrow crossing, a small event at the threshold where waking is handed over to rest. As that crossing begins, your muscles start to let go. Throughout the day, a steady stream of signals keeps a low hum of tension in your body, ready for movement. When sleep nears, those signals soften, and the tension drains outward, shoulders loosening, hands uncurling, the jaw easing. This relaxation is one of sleep's earliest gifts. A deliberate quieting the body performs on its own. You don't have to make it happen. It simply arrives as the wakeful signals fade. It's a peaceful process, and usually it unfolds smoothly. But now and then, in that softening, something brief and unexpected can flicker through. And that's what we're following tonight. What makes this moment delicate is that two things are changing at once. Your awareness is loosening its grip on the outside world, and your muscles are releasing their tone. And these don't always fade in perfect step. For a few seconds, the brain is neither fully awake nor fully asleep, but somewhere in between, with control shared between systems that are still adjusting. Think of it like two hands passing a cup. For an instant, both are holding on, and the handover has to be timed. Most nights, it goes seamlessly. The hypnic jerk seems to arise on the rare night when that timing wavers, just slightly. The most widely discussed explanation begins with that sudden muscle relaxation. As tension leaves your body quickly, some researchers suggest the brain may misread the change. Deep in your nervous system are sensors that track the position and tension of your muscles, constantly reporting where your limbs are. When those signals drop away fast, the theory goes, the brain can briefly interpret the loss not as relaxation, but as a fall, as though the body has suddenly begun to drop. It's an old survival system reading an unfamiliar signal. This is a leading idea, and a reasonable one, but it remains a hypothesis rather than a settled fact. If the brain does read that fading tension as falling, its response would be swift and protective. A quick muscle contraction, the jerk, could be an ancient reflex meant to catch you, to tense the body against a drop that isn't really happening. And here's where it becomes vivid. Many people feel the jerk paired with a sensation of falling, or a fleeting dream of missing a step or slipping off an edge. In this view, the falling feeling and the twitch are two halves of one moment. It's an elegant story that fits the experience closely, though, again, it's an explanation still being tested, not one that's proven. Part of why this falling explanation feels so convincing is that it links two experiences that seem to belong together, the drop and the twitch. But its neatness is also a reason for caution. We can't easily watch the brain make that specific misreading in the moment. And not everyone who jerks reports any sense of falling at all. Some feel only the twitch, with no dream and no drop. So while the idea that your brain briefly mistakes relaxation for a fall is widely favored, honest science holds it loosely. It explains a great deal, yet it leaves room for other forces to be at work in that same instant. A second explanation looks less at misreading and more at the machinery itself. During the day, the motor neurons that drive your muscles carry a certain level of electrical charge, primed and ready. As you fall asleep, these neurons begin powering down. But powering down isn't perfectly quiet. In this view, the motor system can become briefly more excitable right at the edge of sleep. Its threshold for firing lowered as it winds through the transition. Hypnic, then, might simply be the natural restlessness of a system that's still partly charged, releasing once more before it fully settles. No misinterpretation required, just the ordinary physics of switching off. Picture the motor system like an engine easing down after a long drive. It doesn't stop instantly. It can tick or shudder once or twice as the last energy leaves it. In this account, the twitch you feel isn't a warning or a rescue. It's a discharge, a final small release of activity from neurons crossing from active to at rest. This idea appeals to researchers because it needs no story about falling. It fits the plain electrical behavior of a nervous system standing down for the night. Like the others, though, it captures part of the picture, and it can't yet claim to hold the whole of it. A third explanation steps back and looks at the contest itself. Keeping you awake is a network often called the reticular activating system, a hub in the brainstem that holds your arousal steady. Inviting you to sleep is a different set of systems, pressing gently for the day to end. As you drift off, these two are not so much cooperating as competing, each pushing its own direction until one prevails. For most of the night, the sleep-promoting side wins smoothly. But in the seconds of closest balance, when neither has fully taken hold, the handover can waver, and that wavering may show itself in the body. In this picture, the hypnic jerk is a flicker in the handoff, a brief instability as control tips from waking towards sleep, the body registering the moment the balance shifts. And notice what this does to our question. We began by asking why the body jerks with a falling sensation as you drift off, as though there were one cause to name. What the night keeps showing is subtler. The jerk may mark the very boundary being crossed, the felt edge of leaving waking behind, while what exactly triggers it stays genuinely open. The twitch is real and well described. Its single cause remains unsettled, and that honesty is its own kind of comfort. Around this same threshold, the mind begins to do something dreamlike. This in-between state has a name: Hypnagogia, the drowsy border country between waking and sleep. Here, the senses can throw up brief, vivid flashes, a spark of light, a snatch of sound, your name softly spoken, or the unmistakable feeling of stepping off a curb that isn't there. These images aren't signs of anything wrong. They're the ordinary scenery of sleep onset, the mind loosening from the day and beginning to drift. The falling sensation that so often accompanies a hypnic jerk seems to belong to this same soft, imaginative territory. There's a lovely subtlety in how the mind handles all of this. The jerk itself is fast, a fraction of a second. But the brain, ever a storyteller, often reaches for an explanation. And in the dreamy logic of hypnagogia, it may assemble a small narrative to fit the twitch it just felt. A stumble, a slip, a step into empty air. In this reading, the falling dream doesn't cause the jerk. It's stitched on afterward. A quick tale the drowsy mind tells to make sense of a sensation. Your brain, even as it lets go of the day, is still gently trying to explain you to yourself. Sometimes a hypnic jerk arrives with more than a twitch, a quick intake of breath, a faster heartbeat, a flush of wakefulness, as if you'd been briefly startled. And that comparison is apt, because what you're feeling is much like a startle response. The body's old, fast reaction to a sudden change. A brief surge readies you, and then fades as the brain confirms there's nothing to meet. It can feel large in the dark, yet it is entirely harmless. A normal reflex firing in a safe body, in a safe bed. Within moments, the surge recedes, and the soft pull towards sleep returns. By now, the picture has softened around its edges. The quickened heart, the twitch, all of it named as something ordinary and safe. Whatever part of you stayed a little on guard, half listening for a sign that something was wrong, can loosen its hold. There's nothing here that needs defending against. Let one slow breath move out of you, unhurried and complete. And we'll keep following this gentle crossing together, in no rush at all to arrive. It's worth sitting with the fact that these three explanations, the misread fall, the discharging motor system, the wavering handoff, don't cancel each other out. They may each describe a different facet of the same brief event, and the truth could weave quietly through all of them. Science is comfortable holding several possibilities at once, testing gently, in no hurry to force a single answer. For you, resting here, the reassurance is the same under every version. The hypnic jerk is a normal feature of a healthy brain falling asleep. Whatever its exact trigger, it belongs to the process of rest, not to alarm. So the mechanism, for now, stays partly open, and there's a quiet comfort in that honesty. Your body, at the edge of sleep, is doing something intricate, dimming its wakefulness, releasing its hold, crossing a threshold that even careful science hasn't fully mapped. The jerk is a small signature of that crossing, not a flaw in it. You don't have to know precisely why it happens to trust that it's safe, common, and already behind you the moment it passes. The transition keeps unfolding, soft and unforced, carrying you a little further from the day with every breath you let go. There are gentle patterns to when these little jolts tend to visit, and knowing them can soften any worry. Caffeine and nicotine are among the most common companions of the hypnic jerk. Both are stimulants, keeping the nervous system a little more alert than it wants to be as you settle down. A late afternoon coffee or an evening cigarette can leave that quiet alertness humming beneath the surface, making the twitch more likely as your body tries to cross into sleep. It isn't a sign of anything wrong. It's simply a system still likely switched on, meeting the tide of rest with a small, harmless flinch. Vigorous exercise late in the day can invite these twitches too, and the reason is quite tender. When you train hard in the evening, your muscles stay lightly charged and your core temperature runs warm, both of which the body prefers to lower before deep rest arrives. That lingering readiness in the muscles can surface as a sudden jerk at the edge of sleep. It doesn't mean you shouldn't move your body. It simply means the system is still winding down from effort. Giving yourself a slower, cooler hour between exercise and bed often lets that charge dissolve, and the twitches tend to grow quieter. Emotional stress and anxiety also make these jolts more frequent, and this is perhaps the most understandable trigger of all. When the mind is carrying worry, the nervous system stays subtly braced, ready for something even as the body longs to release. That readiness doesn't simply switch off when your head meets the pillow. It lingers in the muscles, in the shallow breath, in the quickened pulse. As sleep tries to take hold, that braced system can misfire into a twitch. If your days have felt heavy lately, a few more of these jolts is not a flaw in you. It's tension asking, gently, to be set down. Of all the triggers, sleep deprivation and sheer fatigue may be the strongest. It sounds almost backward, yet the more exhausted you are, the more likely these jerks become. When you are badly underrested, the brain seems to rush the crossing into sleep, plunging toward it faster than the body can smoothly follow. That hurried descent leaves less room for the graceful handoff between waking and rest, and a twitch can slip through the gap. So if you have been running on too little sleep, these jolts may simply be a tired brain reaching for rest too quickly, eager to fall rather than gently drift. There is a quiet reason exhaustion brings more of these jolts rather than fewer. Two systems share the doorway of sleep. One that keeps you alert and one that draws you down into rest. In a well-rested body, they trade places smoothly. But when you are depleted, both run strained and out of step, and they can collide more sharply at the threshold. The twitch is the sound of that collision. And here, the question we've been holding softens into something kinder. Perhaps the flinch was never the body failing at rest, but the body caring so much about the crossing that it stirs to meet it. One of the most charming ideas about these jerks reaches all the way back to our distant ancestors. The story goes that long ago, primates slept in trees, and a body beginning to relax while perched on a branch was a body in danger of falling. A sudden muscular jolt, the idea suggests, might have startled a dozing ancestor back to alertness, tightening the grip before a real fall could happen. It's a lovely, vivid picture. But hold it lightly. This is a speculative hypothesis, a fond guess rather than proven science. No one has shown it to be true. It remains a story we tell, not a fact we know. Scientists find the tree idea appealing partly because the falling sensation fits it so neatly. But appeal is not evidence. The truth is that the deeper cause of hypnic jerks remains genuinely uncertain, still gently debated among researchers. Some see an echo of old reflexes, others see nothing more than the ordinary, harmless static of a nervous system changing gears. What everyone agrees on is far more reassuring than any single theory. Whatever sparks the twitch, it is not a warning, not a malfunction, not something to fear. You can enjoy the ancient tree story as a bedtime tale, while resting in the simpler certainty that the jolt means you no harm. It helps to know what an ordinary hypnic jerk actually is, so you can recognize it with ease. A true hypnic jerk arrives only at the very onset of sleep, in that narrow doorway between waking and drifting off. It comes once, or perhaps twice, a single startle rather than a pattern. And it is entirely harmless. No injury, no lasting effect, nothing that touches your health. Knowing this shape is a quiet gift. The next time one arrives, you can name it, recognize its familiar timing, and let it pass without alarm, understanding it belongs to the threshold of sleep and nowhere else. You just heard how that startle lives only at the doorway of sleep, harmless and brief. Feel where your own body rests right now, the weight of it held by whatever holds you. If a jolt has visited you tonight, notice that it has already passed, and nothing remains but this breath moving in and softly out. Let the next breath be a little slower. There is nothing here to guard against. As we lean into what's ahead, let your shoulders lower, your jaw ease, and let the body trust the very crossing it once braced to meet. There is one gentle distinction worth holding, and then we can set worry aside entirely. Hypnic jerks belong to sleep's threshold alone. If instead you ever notice twitching that returns through the daytime, or movements that repeat in a steady rhythm, or jerking that keeps waking you again and again through the night, that is simply a different thing, not a hypnic. It's nothing to be frightened of, but it would be worth a calm, unhurried mention to a doctor sometime. For the ordinary sleep onset jolt, though there is no such need, it asks for no visit, no test, no concern at all. So here is the reassuring truth to carry into the rest of the night. The hypnic jerk needs no treatment at all. There is no medicine to take, no condition to fix, nothing to be cured. And where you'd like fewer of them, the gentlest remedies are the ones that soothe you anyway. A little less caffeine in the afternoon, an easing of the stress you carry, and above all, more rest rather than less. Kindness to your tired body is the whole prescription. The twitch fades on its own as you grow less depleted, quietly proving it was never something standing between you and sleep. It helps to notice what this small twitch quietly reveals about falling asleep. We tend to imagine sleep as a switch. Awake, then off. But the body doesn't work that way. Drifting off is more like a slow negotiation, a handing over of control that happens in stages rather than all at once. The hypnic jerk seems to be a brief, visible flicker of that handoff. A single moment where the changeover becomes something you can feel. Seen this way, the jolt isn't an interruption of sleep beginning. It may be a small sign that it already has. Think of that negotiation as two processes overlapping, rather than one ending cleanly. For a short while, part of you is still faintly awake, while another part has already begun to sleep. Most nights this overlap passes unnoticed, smooth and seamless. But now and then, the two states brush against each other, and the body registers the contact as a jerk. Nothing has gone wrong in that moment. It may simply be the ordinary friction of one system easing its grip while another takes hold, briefly made visible in a limb that moves on its own. One of the clearest changes at this threshold happens in your muscles. As you sink towards sleep, the brain gradually loosens the steady, low-level tension that keeps you upright and ready through the day. That tension doesn't vanish all at once. It drains in a slow release, muscle by muscle. Researchers think the hypnic jerk may sometimes appear during that release, as if, in letting go of its hold, the body sends one last small pulse before going quiet. If so, the twitch isn't resistance to rest. It may be the sensation of resistance itself dissolving. Beneath this handoff, scientists describe something like two opposing systems in the brain. One set of circuits works to keep you awake and alert. Another works to pull you down into sleep. Through the day, the waking system leads. As night deepens, the sleep-promoting side gains the upper hand, and control passes from one to the other. That passing of control isn't always perfectly smooth. Some researchers suspect the hypnic jerk arises in the brief unsettled instant when the balance tips, a small overshoot as the waking system finally yields the floor. If you picture those two systems as hands on a rope, sleep onset is the moment one hand lets go and the other takes the weight. For most of the exchange, the transfer is seamless, the rope never slipping. The hypnic jerk may be the rare instant the transfer shows, a tiny catch where the changing grip becomes a movement you can feel. This is only one leading explanation, not a settled fact, but it offers a gentle way to hold the twitch. Not as a failure of the handoff, but as it's seen briefly visible. What all of this suggests is that there is no single instant when you simply fall asleep. There is, instead, a soft border, a stretch of minutes where waking and sleeping are woven together and slowly change places. The hypnic jerk lives right inside that border. It is not a sign you have failed to cross it. It appears because you are already crossing. Knowing this can loosen the worry that a jolt means starting over. The border is wide, and a single twitch is simply one of its ordinary features, not a door closing. Now to the strangest part. The falling. Why does a small muscle twitch arrive dressed as the sensation of dropping through space? The answer researchers lean toward has less to do with the muscle than with the mind. At the edge of sleep, the brain is already beginning to dream in fragments, loosely and without a storyline. When a sudden jerk interrupts that drifting mind, it seems to reach for the nearest explanation. And a body that has just lurched is easily read as a body that has just slipped. The mind is a tireless storyteller, even here at the threshold. Faced with an unexpected physical jolt and no waking context to explain it, it stitches together a quick, plausible scene in a fraction of a second. A missed step, a curb that wasn't there, a foot slipping off an edge. You don't decide this story. It assembles itself beneath awareness, faster than thought. the falling sensation, in this view, isn't the cause of the jerk. It may be the explanation your half-dreaming mind invents an instant afterward to make sense of the movement. It's worth sitting with how quickly this happens. The jerk comes first. A real, physical pulse in a leg or arm. Only in the moment following does the sensation of falling bloom around it, backdated so completely that the two feel simultaneous. Some describe a curb, some a stumble on stairs, some a plunge with no scene at all, just the drop. The variety is telling. If the falling were caused by the body, we might expect one shared sensation. That it wears so many faces hints the mind is filling in the blank, each time a little differently. These brief threshold images have a quality all their own. They aren't full dreams. Those come later, in deeper stages, but loose, flickering impressions that scientists sometimes call sleep onset imagery. Afache, a vord, a sense of motion, gone as soon as it arrives. The falling that accompanies a hypnic jerk seems to belong to this family. A small, involuntary scene the drifting brain produces without effort or intent. There's something almost tender in it. Even as you let go of the day, some quiet part of you is still gently trying to explain your own body to itself. Why falling? Of all sensations, and not floating or turning. No one knows for certain, and honest researchers say so. One thought is that a sudden loss of muscle tone, the body going briefly limp as it releases, resembles, from the inside, the feeling of support giving way beneath you. The mind, catching that release, reads it as the ground disappearing. It's a reasonable guess rather than a proven fact, but it fits the gentle picture. The falling feeling may be the body letting go, translated by a sleepy brain into the oldest story it knows for letting go. Whatever its exact origin, the falling sensation is entirely harmless. Nothing is actually dropping. No danger is near. It is a vivid impression with no consequence, arriving and dissolving in the same breath. Understanding it as a small act of storytelling can take some of its startle away. The next time it happens, you might recognize it for what it likely is. Not a warning, not a fall, but a sleepy mind briefly narrating an ordinary twitch. And recognizing it, you can let the scene fade unfinished, the way most thoughts do as you drift down. Here is where honesty matters more than tidiness. Despite everything described tonight, researchers have not settled which mechanism truly drives the hypnic jerk. Is it mainly the muscles releasing, the two brain systems changing places, the dreaming mind reacting? Different studies lean different ways, and no single explanation has won the field. This isn't a gap to be embarrassed about. It's the ordinary state of a science still mapping something that happens in a place, the exact border of sleep, that is genuinely hard to observe. The uncertainty is real, and it is allowed to stay. There's a quiet pleasure in an open question like this. Something so common, nearly everyone has felt it, remains only partly explained, and that partial understanding is part of what makes it interesting rather than dull. The hypnic jerk sits at the meeting point of muscle, brain, and dream. Three things we understand well on their own and less well where they touch. To hold the twitch honestly is to hold a small piece of the unknown gently, without needing to resolve it tonight. Not every ordinary thing has to be fully solved to be at peace with. Part of why the answer stays open is simply how difficult this moment is to catch. The transition into sleep lasts seconds and resists observation. The very act of studying someone closely can nudge them back toward waking. Instruments can record the muscle pulse and the shifting brain rhythms, but the inner experience, the felt sense of falling, slips through every net. So researchers work at the edges of what can be measured, piecing together a picture from fragments. That the picture is incomplete isn't carelessness. It's the honest shape of knowledge about a place we can barely visit awake. Because the science is unsettled, there's no single trick that reliably prevents a hypnic jerk. And that's genuinely fine. This isn't a problem waiting for a solution. For most people, the twitches are occasional and mild, more curiosity than trouble. If they come often, gentle rhythms around sleep, an unhurried wind down, a body that isn't overtired or over-caffeinated, are sometimes associated with fewer of them, though even that is soft. Not certain. Nothing here needs to be enforced. The invitation is simply to meet the twitch with less alarm, not to work at making it disappear. If anything, the hypnic jerk can be read as reassurance rather than fault. It tends to arrive precisely when the body is releasing well, when the tension is truly draining and the changeover is genuinely underway. In that sense, the jolt is a sign of letting go, not of failing to. A body that never began to release would have nothing to twitch about. So when it happens, you might quietly reframe it. This is not my body resisting sleep. This is my body in the act of releasing, caught for one moment in the middle of doing exactly that. Step back and the whole picture settles into something calm. Falling asleep is a gradual releasing of control, of muscles, of attention, of the waking mind's steady grip. The hypnic jerk is one small, occasional feature of that release, and the falling sensation is the mind's brief attempt to explain it. Each piece is ordinary. Together, they describe a body dissolving its hold on the day. None of it requires your effort or vigilance. It happens on its own, the way it has every night of your life, whether or not you are ever watching it closely. It helps, too, to know how widely this varies from person to person. Some feel hypnic jerks often, many feel them only rarely. A few can't recall the falling sensation at all. All of these are normal. There's no correct amount, no right way for the threshold to feel. Your own experience of it, frequent or faint, with a vivid scene or none, is simply your body's particular way of crossing over. Nothing about the pattern needs correcting. Whatever shape the moment takes for you tonight, It belongs to the ordinary range of how humans fall asleep. So what stays unknown is real, and we can name it plainly. We don't fully know why the jerk fires when it does, why some nights bring it and others don't, or why the mind so often chooses falling as its story. These are genuine, open edges. But an unknown edge is not a threat. It's just the outline of what hasn't been mapped yet. In a corner of experience most of us pass through without noticing. You can rest right up against that edge tonight, letting the not knowing be soft rather than something to solve before sleep. Perhaps the gentlest thing to carry from all this is that sleep has no hard wall to cross. There's only a wide, soft border where waking thins out and sleeping deepens, minute by minute. The hypnic jerk lives inside that border as one of its small, harmless events. A flicker, not a failure. When you feel it, you are already inside the crossing, already partway home. There's nothing to brace against and nothing to get right. The border does the work. You only have to allow it. The way you're allowing it. Quietly. Even now. Your body has made this crossing thousands of times without your help. It knows how to loosen the muscles, how to let the waking system hand over the rope, how to slip beneath the surface of the day. The twitch, if it comes, is part of a route it has traveled all your life. You don't have to steer. You don't have to understand every mechanism the scientists are still tracing. You only have to let the familiar process carry you, trusting the body to do tonight what it has quietly done every night before this one. Here is what the night has been slowly gathering toward, said plainly and gently. The jolt is not something going wrong. As best researchers can tell, it is the body crossing the threshold into sleep. A small startle at the very edge of letting go, arriving because the release is real and underway. Its exact cause is still being mapped, and honest science leaves that door open. But the shape is clear enough to rest on. The twitch marks a beginning, not a break. It is the feeling of sleep taking hold, briefly made visible in a moving limb. Held that way, the falling feeling changes its character. It stops being a stumble and becomes something closer to a threshold sensation. The edge of letting go, felt for a single instant before the crossing completes. You are not slipping off anything solid. You are being lowered, gently, into rest, and a sleepy mind has simply given that lowering an image. There is nothing to catch, because nothing is truly falling. The next time the sensation arrives, you might let it be exactly that. A quiet marker that you have reached the edge, and that the edge is safe. And so the small mystery we followed since the first lurch comes to rest. Not fully solved, but fully softened. A hypnic jerk is the body's honest signal that it is releasing the day. And the falling is only the story a drowsy mind tells about that release. Both are ordinary. Both are safe. Whatever the final science turns out to be, nothing about the twitch asks anything of you but this: to keep letting go, as you have been, and to let the edge of sleep be a place you arrive at, rather than one you guard against. The releasing you just heard about is already moving through you, the muscles softening on their own, the day loosening its grip without any instruction from you. Something has quietly come clear tonight. The jolt was never a fall, only the edge of letting go made briefly visible. You don't have to hold that edge, and you don't have to guard against it. If a small twitch comes, let it pass like a ripple on water that is already going still. The body knows this crossing. Let one more breath go, and let it carry you the rest of the way down. Think of the twitch not as a fall, but as a threshold. Your body is stepping from one country into another, and the border between them is thin. For a moment, the muscles do not quite know which side they belong to. So, they flicker. Once, the way a foot tests the first step of a dark staircase. It is not danger. It is only your body learning where the edge of waking softly gives way. The falling feeling was never really a fall. It may be the sensation of letting go, of the body, loosening its grip on the ground it holds all day. When the muscles finally soften, some quiet part of you seems to notice the release and read it as motion. But nothing dropped. You were only setting down the weight of standing, the weight of holding yourself upright, the weight of another long day. You do not have to brace against the jolt. If it comes, you can let it come. The way you let a wave lift a boat and set it down again. It passes in less than a second, and then the stillness returns, wider than before. There is nothing to catch, nothing to hold. The twitch asks for no response from you at all, only that you keep drifting, gently, toward the deeper quiet. Sleep does not arrive all at once. It seems to come the way dusk comes to a valley, one field at a time, one shadow lengthening into the next. The body and the drifting mind negotiate softly at the edge, trading a little control back and forth until the handoff is complete. The occasional twitch may simply be that negotiation, made visible for an instant. Nothing is wrong. Two old friends are only agreeing on when to let go. Notice how much of you is already asleep before you are. The hands have gone heavy. The jaw has loosened. The breath has found its slower rhythm without being asked. Perhaps the twitch belongs to the small part still awake, checking the others one last time before it, too, lies down. You do not have to wait for all of you to agree. Some of you is already there, resting in the dark, waiting for the rest. There is a kind of trust in the falling feeling. To let the body drop its guard is to believe, without proof, that you will still be here when morning comes. Every night you make that quiet wager, and every morning it is paid. The jerk, if it arrives, is only the last flicker of a body double-checking a bet it has already, quietly, decided to make. You are safe enough to let go. The ground you feel slipping away was never truly under you in sleep. Lying here, you are already held by the bed, by the dark, by the slow turning of the earth that needs nothing from you to keep turning. The sense of falling may be the mind releasing its hold on a floor it no longer has to stand on. There is nothing left to balance. You can let the whole idea of standing dissolve. Some part of the brain seems to keep watch as you drift, listening for the moment the body goes still. It is thought that this quiet sentinel sometimes mistakes the stillness for something else and sends a single small signal, a twitch, as if to ask, softly, "Are you all right?" And you are. You can answer without words, just by staying soft, by letting the watchman see there is nothing here to guard against tonight. The twitch and the calm are not enemies. They live in the same body, on the same edge, in the same tender minute between one world and the next. One is the last motion of the day. The other is the first stillness of the night. Let them share the space. You do not have to choose between them, or fear one to reach the other. Both are simply the sound of a body, finally, coming to rest. Imagine the edge of sleep as a shoreline. All day the waking mind stands on the sand, watching. Now the tide is coming in, warm, unhurried, and the water is rising past the ankles, past the knees. The small jerk may be one last step back from the wave, an old habit of the body. But the tide does not stop. It only rises, softly, until the shore and the sea are no longer two things. You have crossed this threshold thousands of times. Every night of your life, the body has made this same quiet passage, twitch or no twitch, and carried you safely to the other side. It knows the way better than you do. You do not have to steer. You do not have to remember how. Let the oldest, gentlest part of you take the wheel now, the part that has never once failed to bring you home to morning. The falling is not down. There is no floor below the edge of sleep, no depth to strike. If anything, you are settling, the way dust settles through still air, the way snow settles on a field at night, the way a leaf settles on the surface of a pond and rests there, held. What feels like falling is only the softest kind of arriving, slower and gentler than the mind expects, with nowhere hard to land. Let the body do what it already knows how to do. It has loosened 1,000 muscles tonight without a single instruction from you. It has slowed the heart, quieted the breath, dimmed the lights behind your eyes. The one small twitch, if it comes, is part of that same wisdom, a body tending itself, releasing the last held thing. You can trust the hands that have carried you all your life to lower you gently down. There is nothing left tonight that needs your effort. The falling feeling asks nothing of you but permission. Permission to stop holding. Permission to let the floor go. Permission to be carried instead of carrying. You have held so much today. Now you can set it all along the edge and step across without it. The body will follow. It only waited to be sure you were ready to let the weight be somewhere else. Notice that even the memory of the twitch is soft now. Whatever startled you at the edge has already loosened, already blurred, already begun to belong to the day that is ending rather than the night that is beginning. This is how sleep works. It takes the sharp things and rounds them, takes the loud things and lowers them, until nothing that happened is large enough to keep you from the quiet that is opening beneath you now. The edge is not a cliff. It is a slope, so gentle you can barely feel the ground begin to tilt. You are already moving down it, not falling, drifting, the way water finds the low place without trying, the way weight finds rest. The twitch was only the body's last little step onto the slope, a small adjustment of footing. Now, the footing no longer matters. There is only the soft, unhurried lean towards sleep. Let go of the watching. All evening, some part of you has been listening for the jerk, waiting to see if it would come. You can set that listening down too. Whether it arrives or not, the night will hold you just the same. The best way past the edge is to stop guarding it, to let the mind wander off from its post, to let attention loosen and scatter like the last embers of a fire going quietly out. Feel how the boundary is softening between you and the bed. Where your body ends and the darkness begins is harder to find now. This blurring is the true threshold, not a place to fall from, but a place to dissolve into. The old sense of a solid, separate self is loosening its edges, the way ink loosens in water. There is nothing to fall because there is. More and more. No firm edge left to fall from. The negotiation is nearly finished. The waking mind, which argued all day, has run out of things to hold on to. It is handing over the last of its control, quietly, without complaint. The drifting mind receives it, gentle as a hand taking a sleeping child. Whatever small twitch marked the exchange has already passed. What remains is only the long, smooth glide that follows any true agreement. The peace of a thing, at last, decided. You are allowed to disappear for a while. That is all sleep is. A soft, temporary vanishing. A setting down of the self so it can be gathered again, whole, by morning. The falling feeling may be the first loosening of that self. The moment you begin to slip out of the shape you held all day, you do not have to keep that shape tonight. Let it go soft at the edges. Let it, gently, come apart. There is a stillness underneath the twitch, older and deeper than any jolt. It was here before the startle, and it is here after. The wide, quiet ground of rest that the whole body is sinking toward. The jerk is only a ripple on its surface. Feel past the ripple to the deep water below, where nothing moves, where nothing needs to. That is where you are going now. That is where you have always, secretly, belonged. Let this be the last thing you decide tonight. That the falling is safe. That the twitch is kind. That the edge is not an ending, but an opening. and the dark on the other side is not empty, but full. Full of rest. Full of quiet. Full of the soft return your body makes every single night. You have decided harder things than this today. Let this one be easy. Let yourself, at last, believe it. The body is almost all the way home now. The breath has gone long and even. The limbs have grown too heavy to lift, and there is no reason to lift them. Whatever startled you at the threshold has been left behind on the far shore. Small and fading. You are past it. You are through. There is only the slow, warm current of sleep now, carrying you the rest of the way, asking nothing, letting you rest. And so the falling feeling brings you, in the end, not down, but in past the guarded edge, in past the last held thing, in toward the quiet that was always waiting beneath the noise of the day. You did not fall. You were received. The body opened its hands and let the ground go. And instead of dropping, you were held by the dark, by the bed, by the deep and patient rhythm of rest itself. The falling was never a fall. It was your body, at the very edge of sleep, finally letting the ground go, not because it lost its footing, but because it no longer needed one. You spent the whole day holding on. Tonight, you can stop. Let the last thing loosen. Let the earth slip softly from beneath you, and trust, as you have always been right to trust, that you will be caught, and held, and kept, by rest. 100 facts ago, a startled lurch pulled you back from the edge of sleep, and it felt like danger. Now that same jolt looks gentler, a threshold, not a cliff. We followed the quiet handoff at the border of night, where the waking mind and the drifting mind seem to trade control until the passage is complete. We noticed how the half-dreaming mind, catching the twitch, may stitch a small falling story around a motion that never happened. What began as a body jerking you awake became a body, softly, learning how to let you go. A sudden twitch jolts you awake with a falling sensation, and now you know it for what it may be. Not a fall, but the first tender loosening of a body willing to let the ground go. Perhaps this hour softened the startle and made the falling feel less like danger and more like rest arriving. A gentle like, subscribe, or share carries this quiet to another body still bracing at the edge of sleep, still waiting to feel safe, letting go. One quiet tap, one sleepy soul at a time. Right now, the body is loosening its hold on the ground, the way a hand opens in sleep and lets a held thing fall away. All day you gripped the floor beneath you, kept yourself upright, stayed ready. That readiness is dissolving now, muscle by muscle, without a single instruction from you. Let your whole weight release into the softness underneath. Let the earth slip gently from beneath you, not dropping, only letting go, until there is no floor to fall from. No edge to guard. Only the deep and patient rest that was always here to catch you. Let these last thoughts settle now, like dust drifting down to the quiet floor. Let your breath grow heavy with the rest already underway. If sleep comes, let it carry you to the place beneath the edge, where falling turns to being held. The Relaxing Body Science Facts to Fall Asleep To playlist has spent many hours here, tracing how the body crosses into sleep. What the twitch at the threshold is truly for, no one can yet say. That hour is waiting whenever you are ready. But if your eyes are closed, stay there. Rest well. Weary one. You were never falling. You were only letting go. Gentle facts for restless minds. Sleep well. Good night.